Alright, not really heaps to show here at the moment. I've just turned the flashlight off because I've just added a little shadow for the guy. Just to sort of test a few of the things out, like the multiple shadows, like you can see here, and the blending. It's really just a little diversion. I've been mostly working on the template system, but kind of liked not having the big old flashlight and actually being able to see a bit more of the environment lighting from up close. The room generator, as I said before, is now based on the templated objects, so you'll see that, well, going a bit far at the moment. Basically it creates a bunch of rooms using, I shall show you, this template format. Is a very simple template. So we create a, here's a base room, it says it's the root, which means it's where we start the generation from. In this I've just stipulated a hard size floor and wall tiles, children, rooms that spawn off of it, and then lights, which is another thing that I've added support for now. So I'm basically slowly moving things over to being controlled more and more by this template language. So over the next couple hours there'll be more entities and things like that, and more importantly it's a lot easier to sort of change things. So like for example, in here, let's go back to the, so this is, I'll turn my flashlight off. The lights kind of freak out when they're right on top of an object, which obviously is the case with your flashlight. So I'm just turning it off for the time being. You can see this room actually has a few lights in it. Only one of them is defined by the template. There's actually some old code that just scatters grey lights at a regular interval throughout the map, so you can kind of see those around. There's one. There's another mixed in with the red. But yeah, the cool thing is that it actually works live. So if I go, I don't like this base room having a blue light, and then I can go in here, red, green, blue, and I can make it into, say, cyan, with a little hint of red. And then if I just quickly regenerate the map, we now have cyan with a little bit of red, which in this case works out to almost being white. Really, it's a bit too bright. So let's get rid of the red, and let's get rid of the green. Let's make it like 64 blue and 64 red, which should make it a sort of darkish magenta. Oof. Not quite darkish. Yeah, I've also, there's a lot of things that as I go, I'm just sort of adding them to the console commands so that everything is kind of controllable from within debug land. So I can sort of go lighting, what is it, scale, no, radius scale. And now I've got this thing up here, and I can drag it as usual, but before, we were just always moving all numbers by 1, which doesn't really work. But if I hold down Control, I can do it by tenths. And that scale value actually changes all the lights in the place. So we've got the relative scales of them, alright, but we don't really like where it's going. That's kind of what we can do. We can just tweak them all together. We'll make them really big, so they actually fill rooms, and they start going a little bit whack after a certain time, because when you're changing the scale at the moment, I'm going to have two different parameters. When you change the scale of the light, you're also changing where the light is spawned from. So at the moment, this light is taking up the whole room, but it's actually technically kind of coming from most of the room as well. So that's why it's causing the blurred shadows, is it's actually calculating multiple points on the light and then projecting multiple shadows out, which looks pretty good in most scenarios, but what I'm going to need to do is add two variables, one for how big the umbra of the light is, and one for how big the source of the light is. And I think we'll probably keep the source at a maximum of probably about this size. And that would define the sort of hardness of the light, and combined with the samples. You can also change. What is it again? Total samples. So yeah, you can change the total samples, which should really be called max samples. So if I set that to 1, then we get not as fancy looking hard shadows, but to some extent they're more appropriate considering the graphics style at the moment. There are a few glitches still, like that one there. That's technically caused by the same problem that I was talking about before, where things that are too close to the light don't get calculated properly. So you can see I've now moved that. That's because the light was right here. And it was sort of the equivalent of when I go stand here on top of this one. Like that. See the weird tweaks. That's because we're effectively a very narrow box, and the light is inside it. And so the edges, well, I can show you actually. So I turn off the walls being drawn on top, and you can kind of see what the shadows do everywhere. And if I do show the debugging, then you can actually see the lines. They're very subtle, but you can see the lines that are actually being calculated to shadow from, and so it never does any that are inside a set of blocks. It only does edge lines, you can see. But what that means is that when there's a light inside, it technically doesn't get blocked by anything, because I'm already culling the things that would be blocking it. Anyway, I don't like it with low samples, because the high samples covers my shame for the time being. Yeah. Look, it looks like I've not really done much, but that's because most of it's internal. I just thought I'd show that something is happening. So yeah, we've got live editing. I'm going to set that back because I don't really like the purple light. There seems to be a little bit of an issue with the, God, I just said ish. Seems to be a little bit of an issue with the brightness calculations of the lights. Not quite sure what's going on there. I think it's because I screen rather than adding, which I might undo again. I just changed it in case it affected the blacks properly. Oops. There we go. Also, the umbra used to, but as an error, the umbra used to shine outside the walls. So what I'm doing now is drawing any absence of walls into the shadow map, so that we don't get it shining outside of rooms. Obviously you couldn't see the shadows because the shadows are an absence of light, but you'd still see the umbra, so it would kind of block here, but then you'd see glows from the redness out here. If you look at any of the previous videos, you'll see it. Not a big deal. So yeah, with the exception of just making things work a little better, like automatic rooms, and it also automatically tunnels between the rooms, all that sort of thing. So it's pretty similar to your standard sort of roguelike or angband generator at the moment, except with slightly less options currently. But it's getting there. As I said before, the entities are also defined by the templates, so I'll do a video probably in the next hour or two, once I've got that sort of nailed down a bit better, and that'll demonstrate effectively a working RPG system. I'm going to quickly add a couple types of GUI widget as well, that should... oh, interesting, there's a glitch there. Shouldn't be getting blue light. Should be in shadow, I'm not sure why that is. Oh, the light's probably in the wall. Oh, there we go. Cool. Yeah, so the light's in the wall somewhere. Yeah. What was I going to say? Oh yeah, going to add a couple GUI elements that can update in much the same way that this can. That update kind of like watches, but so that would be this health bar down here, for example, would automatically reflect the stat that you attach it to. And you could just have multiple. I'll just make a few different types of widgets like that have progress bar style representations, things like that. And then we've got a heads-up display that works properly and will change in accordance with our requirements. So yeah, that's probably only about an hour or so off. At which point, a whole bunch of stuff will start working. Like really, once I've ironed out these last couple glitches, we'll have fighting and more advanced interaction. Most importantly, defined by a text file that can be hot loaded, so you can just sort of try shit out and then drop back in and change things. I'd like to at some point make a text editor component to include in the GUI, just to make it easier to edit some of the templates. I think that's of quite high importance, but it's not enough of a priority right now that I'm going to bother, unless I suddenly finish everything really quickly. Oh yeah, and there's just little things like, you may notice the rooms have different floors and even different walls. Very simple. It was kind of working before, but now it works properly, and I've made more walls and floors and things, so you can actually kind of get the benefit of it. Alright, this video is going on too long. Bye.